Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug Show. My name's Doug Huntington, and in this episode, I'm going to tell some stories. I think it's really about planning for issues that you might have, planning for things that maybe there's not even a strong possibility that they're going to happen, but if something goes wrong, then you might be kind of screwed. And I'll jump to the punchline, and then I'll tell you more about the stories. I have a hard drive that potentially crashed. So just a little foreshadowing. You may be a little bit ahead of me and kind of know where this is going, but I'll tell you all about it. I'm actually recording this in a bedroom of like technically a teenage girl. That sounds much weirder than I thought. It's my niece, right? So my niece is letting me stay in her room. She's actually in college, so technically, she's like 18, 19, but teenager nonetheless. I'm staying here because I'm back in the Atlanta area. And actually, I've lived in this room for a few months, which I'll tell you a little bit more about, but it looks totally different than when I was here. It truly looks like the bedroom of a teenage girl. There's paintings of like horses on the walls and stuff like that. She likes horses. She got into that kind of stuff, which is cool. But anyway, there's not a ton of stuff in here, and I'm back in the Atlanta area visiting family. It is my sister's 50th birthday, so we're kind of hanging out. And my other sister and her family came around, so this is where I'm staying, and I'm recording. Just sitting on the floor, and I have my little portable recorder, which I have changed. I used to use a Zoom H4n, which I still have, and it's great. And I would bring an extra microphone with me. It's a little heavier just in general. And right now I'm recording on the Zoom H1n, which is a very small handheld device. It almost looks like just a handheld microphone, but there's some controls on the front, and it records in really high quality. It's actually really surprising how well it does. And I think it's like less than $100. Pretty sure I got this one used on eBay. That's kind of my go-to move, is get either like an open box or something very lightly used on eBay. And I have to cough here. So works great. It's a little bit smaller. And for, potentially if I got the urge to record, much like today, it's really easy for me just to grab it. I'm recording on my iPhone for video on the YouTube side, and it's going to do a great job. And this is a much lighter kit than, bringing my DSLR, which I decided not to bring this time, and the H4n with another microphone and an XLR cable. It gets to be a little bit much. It's not super heavy, and I certainly could have fit it, but this is like, good enough quality, and it's like probably 1/10 of the weight in like space. The thing is, I flew Frontier this time because the flight was super cheap. It was like $145. However, Frontier, they'll charge you for a carry-on, like your rollerboard. So it used to be like, I don't know, $25, $35, but nowadays it's like $65, $70 each way, which essentially makes it the same price as, flying a non-economy brand out there. And I had been flying United for the last year and a half or so. Anyway, the Frontier flight was so cheap, I thought, well, I'm just going to bring my backpack. And because I'm planning ahead, I sent clothes ahead of time. All that to say, this small kit actually like makes a difference, and it's much lighter to carry around than, the full setup and all that stuff. So that's what we're rolling with today, and that's why I'm sitting on the floor and I'm recording on this. Hopefully the audio is just as good as what you would expect. And any, issues with my voice, that's on me. I'm talking a lot. Yesterday, I luckily didn't drink too much, but the day before that, actually, I drank a decent amount. It's a party atmosphere around here, being my sister's 50th birthday. So yeah, my voice, little gravelly, but relatively good. And I think, if I just talk a little quieter, it actually maybe sounds better. Like I'm whispering in your ear in a creepy way, apparently. So I'm out here in Suwanee, Georgia, for the people that know the Atlanta area, which I know there's actually quite a few either that have lived in Atlanta or of Atlanta or you live here right now. So Suwanee, Georgia area, suburban USA. This morning, I'm missing Georgie a ton, the dog Georgie, and I went for a walk. Luckily, they're very close to the Chattahoochee River, and there's a little small state park close by. So I walked about 4-ish miles or so down to the river, walked around a little bit, and then came on back. And it was fine, tons of humidity out there. You know how Georgia in the South is, but it was cloudy. Temperatures are not too hot. So it was a really nice walk. And I saw, unfortunately, a bunch of spiders. I don't have an issue with spiders particularly, but I almost walked into the webs a few times, and they're decent size. I would say, an inch, 2 inches in diameter, a couple of them that I saw, and fairly big webs. The kind of spider that if I saw it crawling on my arm, I wouldn't be super happy about it. I'd probably try to, swat it off my arm very aggressively. But I took a couple pictures, and, it's kind of cool to see the spiders out there. I saw deer as well, and a couple hawks. I heard some hawks squawking out there. So it was a nice, outdoor time. And, I miss Georgie. And I'm used to going on a couple miles of a walk first thing in the morning and being out kind of in nature. In my neighborhood, it's more of a greenway situation. So there's like sidewalks and other stuff. But I was on like a dirt gravel road, mostly in the woods. And then the Chattahoochee River is pretty big, and it just rained here for like a day and a half. So lots of water out there. So anyway, I'm in this Suwanee, Georgia house, and it's a room that I actually lived in before. So when I got out of college, I got a job at a consulting company called Accenture, and I knew I was going to be traveling, most likely. Almost all the projects require travel. So I was pretty sure that I was going to be on the road Monday through Thursday, and that I would just need a place to crash over the weekends. So I asked my sister, who had an extra room when she got this house, and they were like, sure, you can hang out. I'm fairly close with my siblings. So they were like, sure, you could definitely stay here. We have the room. So I lived in this like extra bedroom for maybe like 6 months or so, really just on the weekends. And part of the time I would crash elsewhere, but I would come back here, hang out, do some laundry. I'm a fairly good house guest because I cook a lot, and I clean up, and I keep things pretty tidy. So I'm a pretty good house guest overall. And yeah, stayed here. The room, it looks a little bit different. The core is of course the same. And I kind of remember, the window, I'm sitting in front of a window here. So I kind of remember living here and stuff. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool to be back, and it's fun to be around family, and it's not around the holidays. So that's one thing. Since we've moved, we are generally not coming back for like Thanksgiving and Christmas, because there's so many other activities. We hardly get to see our families, and they're running around to other places. So we have been trying to visit on near holiday timeframes, but not on the exact holiday. Makes travel cheaper too. So that's a little hack. So one reason I'm recording this episode is, well, I did have the urge and I had the equipment to actually record, but when I left Colorado, I woke up that morning and I didn't need to do much work or anything like that, but I was like, I'm just going to go and upload a video file, and I'm going to shut down my computer. I usually shut it down when I leave for a few days. So I went down and my computer was off, and I thought that was very strange. I was rendering a video, which takes a few hours. I often do it overnight. Computer was off. I turned it on and then found that one of my external hard drives did not show up. And I thought, oh no, this is not good. It's 5:30 in the morning. I'm not completely thinking clearly, but I also know that's bad. I'm thinking, oh, fuck. So I reboot the machine. I cycle the power on the hard drive, still not showing up. And it's a pretty new hard drive. It's maybe 6 months old. It's a good brand that I've used multiple times. I actually have a similar hard drive that is a smaller size that is probably 6 or 7 years old that I've been using for this whole time. Zero issues. It's fantastic. That's why I got another one of twice the size. So I do not have a very good backup routine for my data. And back in the day, I actually had, an external hard drive, and I would use the time machine feature on my Mac, and I would, back up everything, and that was good to go. I also at some point started using, I think, Google Drive for sort of redundancy. However, at the time, the files were often huge, and maybe I had like a underpowered computer, and maybe my network connection wasn't great. So if I was trying to sync up big video files like I do often, I would not be able to use my machine. So I would be working, and then things would go slow, and I realized that my machine's trying to back up data to like Google Drive. So eventually I was like, well, this is not going to work. I can't do it like this. So I stopped backing up on a regular basis in an automated fashion. And then for some time, I would like do video interviews, or I would do a video, and then I would upload the file to Google Drive as a backup, just in case, the fucking hard drive crashed. You see where this is going? So as time went by, as I got lazy, as people get lazy, I stopped like uploading the files right afterwards. Most of the time it doesn't matter, because often what I'll do is I'll do my interview, and then I'll shoot a video, and then I edit it, and then I render it right away. Still not great, but there's a very short time frame where there's not like a final product. And then once the final product is rendered, then I could just upload it to wherever it needs to be. And it's kind of like a cloud backup over on YouTube, for example, or on my podcast host. So it's sort of backed up. It's not the pure, unadulterated, unedited, uncompressed file, but it works. So anyway, I had to go to the airport, so I couldn't mess around and troubleshoot the hard drive very much. There's a chance there's a couple things are wrong, and it's just going to work when I get back, which I'll tell you a little bit about. But it is unclear to me right now what I potentially have lost. So it could have been about 6 to 10 episodes of my various podcasts, and some of them were very good, unfortunately. Like, I did the interview, and I was like, that was so fun. Like, the other person had fun, and I did, and I think I asked questions that they weren't asked before, and they really got to like share their personality, and it was just a fun conversation. So, and that, like, probably 4 of the interviews, like, that was the outcome. And I think I even said, I was like, oh, that was really fun. Like, I'm so glad that you spent time with me. And they were like, yeah, that was a blast. So that is where I feel really terrible. And I've actually emailed a couple of the people already, because I literally like did the interviews on one day, and then that night the hard drive went down. So I have emailed them and said, I apologize. Here's what happened. The data could be recoverable, but it is unclear to me. So a couple things I am going to check, because as I'm heading to the airport, I mean, it's all I can do because it's so fresh. And I am searching to see, what do you do to troubleshoot? And it's like the normal shit. Check the cable, make sure the drive has power, reboot your machine, dance around the house on one foot, like, basically just restart your computer. So there's a couple things that may work. One of the more difficult, but still doable things is, removing the actual hard drive from the external enclosure and then putting it into another hard drive, because there's a little, an interface within the enclosure, and that can go bad as well. Of course, there's a chance that the actual hard drive is, busted or corrupted to the point where I can't recover it. but I feel like there's still going to be something in there that I can recover. And I don't think, the cable went bad, but it is possible. And I mean, things go bad sometimes. Electronics are just duds. So there is a chance that I switch hard drive enclosures and then everything's there and I'll be good to go. But I had to leave. So I had to leave minutes after I discovered this problem, and I really just had time to reboot the machine and double check the cables. But I mean, at this point, I have a really fast internet connection. I'm wired, so I'm not even using wireless. So I have essentially like 1 gig up and 1 gig down. So I can upload huge files in just a few minutes. I mean, it doesn't take much. So I think I am back at the point where I can do redundant cloud backups and not hose my machine where I can't use it. So now that it's unfortunate that I had to learn this fucking lesson in a very real way where I am losing data. Now, I mentioned a couple of these interviews that I've done, and the worst part is I feel like I've wasted my friends' time that I interviewed. They're all cool. They have gone through similar things, right? They know that sometimes the technology fucks us, basically. And they've been super cool, and they said it was fun doing. I would re-record it with you. It is no problem at all. And that made me feel a lot better because I just felt, foolish for not backing up, knowing that I used to have, really good data recovery plans and systems in place. And it just feels so silly at this point. But now with the fast internet that I have and a better machine, I have a Mac Mini that's spec'd out pretty well. So I will be able to, back up files immediately after I do the interviews, and data is relatively cheap or storage space is cheap to purchase. So, even I think I have a 5 terabyte plan on Google Drive. So, there's a lot of stuff. I think I'm maybe using half of it, but there's plenty more. Of course, as I, keep uploading and uploading, you end up with some kind of digital clutter, to be honest with you. But at some point, maybe I could have a, data retention plan where I keep it for 6 months. And then if I need to clear out stuff, I can kill it at that point. So the takeaway here, the lesson is, do backups, right? You may not be doing video interviews or whatever, but data backups are important. I've mentioned a couple times that it's really important to have off-site. I got to just take my own advice now that I'm about to say it out loud. Have off-site, off of your hosting account, have backups that are independent of your hosting company. So I use managed WP. And I know that SiteGround and MDD hosting, where I have my websites, their backups are also offsite. And if I needed to get one, that would be fine. But they can also run into issues. And maybe, they have a data redundancy plan, but it's not what I expected, or something went wrong, or they have an issue recovering the data or whatever. It's great to have my own backups. And I use managed WP. I think it's probably $2 per site or something like that. So it's very nice to have that daily backup, the redundancy. They keep it for a while. They don't keep the data forever. But I know if I need to get a backup, I can access it there. Additionally, for managed WP, they have really a kind of a dashboard and management system. So you can back up your WordPress install before you update WordPress, for example, or before you update plugins. And you can do that for multiple sites right there on one dashboard. So you could say, back up this site, then do a upgrade for, whatever software, whatever plugin, whatever needs to be updated. So the lesson here is, back your shit up. You probably won't need it. Like I said, I had a pretty good system for years and never needed it at all. And then just one day, fucking hard drive doesn't turn on. The worst case scenario, that's another thing I thought about. I, lost those interviews. People are cool. We potentially can redo it. From a scheduling perspective, it's not great. It's around the holidays and I was working ahead, and I did have nearly a month of interviews done. And I had so many interviews that I wasn't even peppering in like these individual episodes like this. One reason I'm recording this is I may need to publish this in the next few days. And I did have a few minutes, and I had a sad story to tell. So there could be more of these, since I have this little setup here, I actually can record a little bit more if I need to. So worst case scenario, I'm going to have to do a little extra work. I could always rebroadcast stuff too. So really not a huge deal on the podcast side. And it's important to think of that, because the morning that I was flying out and heading to the airport, minutes after discovering the hard drive crashed, I was pissed. I was like, this sucks. And the worst part is like, it's something that was under my control to avoid. So pissed off at the situation, and then annoyed with myself, which, that's the worst, right? Because you could be so hard on yourself for making a dumb mistake, or, incompetence of like doing the work that I know needs to be done, which is backing up stuff. So when I was starting to spiral out of control, I realized, it's not horrible. It's not the worst thing in the world. Now, I also had a lot of pictures on that hard drive. However, I did have some redundancy with those image files. So I'm pretty sure I probably have 90% of them on another hard drive that is not even plugged in. I mean, hopefully it works, but I have another hard drive where I think most of that is all backed up. Plus, I do have Google Photos where I think most of those images live as well. And unfortunately, a lot of those are not going to be like the full res images. They are slightly compressed, but from a, complete data loss perspective, it's fine. It's not completely lost. It's something that if I needed to print out those images, they may not be as high quality, but the fact is that I'm probably not going to have to print them out or anything. So back up your data, everyone. Especially if there's something that like you used to do and you're like, it's probably going to be fine, then, go back and do it. It could save you some headaches and that sort of thing. Or, I mean, for me, as I'm thinking about it, it's so rare, right? It's so rare for these hard drives to crash. I was actually getting away with my system and what I was doing for a very long time. And even this, where I've lost these interviews, it's going to be okay, and it's really not that big of a deal. So one thing I could do, maybe I don't have to get a second hard drive, because I was thinking, I'm going to get a second hard drive. I'm going to do like real dedicated, redundant hard drives where one of them just duplicates the other one. So if it crashes, I'm not fucked. That is potentially fairly easy to do, and it gives me peace of mind. The other side of this is a little more potentially reckless, but I've gotten away with it for a decade or more without having like the same kind of, redundant backups that I used to do. And it's been fine. And it's probably rare for it, for a hard drive to totally crash, like potentially I'm looking at. So I could just know, all right, if I just do an interview, upload it immediately, and then at least I have a backup in the cloud. And that, that should cover, 99% of the time. And then if for some reason the hard drive crashes, at least I have that backup. So I may not do a full on redundancy system. There's probably some name for it, but I probably won't go that full route. And if I just do the backups immediately, that shortens the window of any kind of issue. So, still figure out a way to make sure you're doing backups so you don't end up in a situation that I'm in. And it could be much worse also. I know my wife, she had an external hard drive and she was trying to, do backups, and then there was some failure, and then there was some mistake that she made, and she ended up losing thousands of photos from, say like 2007 to 2009. So there's a full window where she lost every single image that she took, except, the handful that were on her phone. So, that bummed her out. And the thing is, like, at the end of the day, like, it's fine. She lost some images. It makes her sad, but as time goes on, like, she's not as upset about it, of course. So anyway, hopefully I can recover the data from the hard drive, and then I can come back to you with another solo podcast, a story of redemption and growth and figuring out how to recover data from a potentially dead hard drive. So thanks a lot for listening to my story. If you have any stories like this, leave a comment or shoot me an email, feedback@Doug.Show, so I can feel like I'm not alone. I think, hard drive crashes are not super common, but when they happen, well, it's no fun. It's no fun to do. And I don't have an excuse for not having like some kind of a backup system. No excuse at all. So thanks for checking it out. And a quick note, if you're not on the email list, you can sign up for the email list. I give you all my templates and systems and stuff like that. And I shoot you an email 1, 2, 3 times a week, where typically I'll let you know about new content that's coming out, either podcast or YouTube. Sometimes I just write emails where I, maybe tell you a story like this, and hopefully it has some kind of point. And I have been trying to do more of those. So you can go to nichesiteproject.com, click the green button, and sign up for the email list. Additionally, if you like the show and you want to help me out, leave me a review. And you can do that over, the most important ones are Apple Podcast and over on Spotify. So I think you can leave reviews on Spotify. And I was actually one of the interviews that I potentially lost. My buddy was saying he has more listens over on the Spotify side, which I feel surprising because I have, or at least traditionally, I had very few listens on the Spotify side. So, leave a review there. I'm not sure, the algorithm and organically how it grows over there, but he seems to be crushing it. And I'm not really sure. I mean, he didn't even know like what was going on. He just said, it really picked up over there. And then all of a sudden he was getting, almost 60% of his downloads from Spotify. So anyway, if you like the show, if you want to support me, you can leave a review, and that helps a lot. And I don't ask for it very often. And I appreciate everyone that left a review recently. A couple people did shoot me an email and let me know. So thank you. If you do have the time to leave a review, it does help out. So we'll catch you on the next episode, and wish me luck troubleshooting this hard drive situation.